Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Star Radio UK.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Body is your man. Bekutu, show them you got the cocoa set. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Harry Song, aka Mr. Songs. This is the Kingmaker Baba for the girls. We're here. This is Star Radio. We don't go nowhere. UK, London. We they call them London for home. For here, we they call them London. And that's how you know. Just have fun and stay blessed.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, and it is a Wednesday of the Niger Voices once again. My name is Olayomi Koiki. I say good evening to all our listeners and viewers around the world, and welcome once again to the first Niger Voices, for the month of December. I'd like first and foremost to say thank you so much to my producer, Mr. Frank David, and Mr. Archie Almond, that are working behind the scene, all the sound engineer, and everyone that is making it very possible, to come live every Wednesday to talk to those in Ghana, in Kenya, to all the Africans that are out there, looking forward to, what is going to be happening in Nigeria within the next couple of days and months. My name is Olayomi Koiki, and I'll say good evening and welcome to the edition of this program. Tonight, we have a lot to discuss. But before I go into that, I would like to say thank you so much to those that have joined us on the sister broadcast to my left-hand side. To those of you that have joined us on Instagram, the good thing about the technology now is we can communicate and you can see us. What is the best more than the analog days during those times that, you just have to keep talking on the radio and nobody knows what your face looks like. And sometimes you're out there in the public domain and nobody knows. That has been the radio presenter, but this time around we have people that are watching us in Tokyo, in Toronto, in Cyprus, in Canada, and as far back as well in almost every part of Nigeria. Star Radio UK, it is your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. And every Wednesday, you will find me here, where we discuss issues affecting Nigerians, issues affecting the indigenous people, issues that the British Empire brought together that made up Nigeria in 1914, as there's a lot of people that are now asking who actually is a true Nigerian and what are the culture, the languages of Nigeria as well. Good evening to you in Manchester, good evening to you in England, in Dublin, good evening to you in Spain, Italy, in Malaysia, good evening to you in Thailand, good evening to you in Togo, good evening to you in Paris, and good evening to you in Benin Republic. Again, I've got a lot to discuss. If you're watching me on Star Radio UK, you'll be getting a lot of soundtrack that will be coming from what we have prepared for you. But if you're watching us from the sister broadcast, you'll be able to see some of those images that will be coming on air. Good evening to those of you that will be watching it as well later on. To kickstart the program, I have actually gone back to review what I'm going to be discussing tonight. And I remember when, APC were presenting, the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, to Nigerians. A lot of people were a little bit skeptical, but it seems that some of us, got carried away with the hope that, a former retired major general, he will understand, how to at least protect Nigerians. And tonight, I will also give you the opportunity at about maybe an hour to the program or an hour and a half, you will be able to call in, but I will give you the number to call in. Please do not try to call any other number apart from the number that will be given to you. I say good evening once again to every single person that have joined us. Good evening to my beautiful mother. I will be reading the comment section as well. Good evening to you, Yaudua. Good evening to you, Omo Olabisi Adebayo, Kiki Emmanuel. Good evening to you. Good evening to everyone that have joined us so far. And this evening, like I said, I will review a lot about this government. When President Muhammadu Buhari was campaigning, until there was a merger between, some political parties, it was under the CPC, and eventually there was a merger. That merger gave us what is now called the APC. If you're not familiar with the Nigerian politics, you might probably want to sit back. You will enjoy the program. If you're just passing by, I will give you as much of what you need to know. The APC, who is the running party, came together and was founded on February 6, 2013, which is just about 2 years before the 2015 election. It took a lot of, different political party, from the Congress for Progress, Change, or Nigerian People's Party, and the Action Congress actually formed the APC. So that means that, the bulk of it also came from the southwest of Nigeria, which is, the Yoruba side today. But one thing that a lot of questions have been raised is, how has this government been, for those of us, that have sat back, and then looking at the dot line, election, for those that are looking up to election, I am not one of those, because I believe that it is not going to work for a new election, especially when you look back, to how the constitution that we currently have at the moment has been put together. I'm talking about the 1999 Military Dictate 24, Military Decree 24, which has been used. Good evening to those of you on our MixLR channel and the rest of those of you that are watching us on Star Radio UK, on YouTube, on Twitter. This document behind me is known as what is being used in Nigeria today, called the 1999 Constitution. But what I can tell Nigerians tonight is, well, not just Nigerians, if you're an African, if you're, Asian, European, that this Constitution is not just a fraudulent document, but it has been used by so many other presidents, just as Buhari, the current president, have used it as well. And that is, we got a picture of Buhari. I'm not sure whether he has just eaten manna, which is a meat in the northern part of Nigeria, or he was just, relaxing in his Aso Rock right there. And on the right hand side of the screen are Nigerians that are now saying, was there a mistake to have brought in Buhari in 2015? All these I'll be reviewing tonight. When you look at, the bread tonight is more expensive than anything else. The wife has been, on the media a couple of weeks ago, and so many of such. But the point that we are going to look tonight, that will take us to some of the timeline. We start from when, again, just as Tinubu, came to London, 2 days ago on Monday precisely, in Chatham House. Buhari also did the same thing, and I will take you through when Buhari was actually here in London. Buhari came to London Thursday, or probably arrived about a couple of days before attending the same thing that Tinubu did in Chatham House. But there was also some of those of us that were a little bit skeptical. They were pro and those in support. Thursday, February 26, 2015, in Chatham House, Buhari actually came in and told a lot of Nigerians that there is going to be hope, and that hope is what is going to give you a good economy, is going to give you security, is going to protect every single Nigerians, whether you are in Nigeria or you are outside Nigeria. I'm not sure that the government has been able to do so. This has been one of the most terrible government that we've ever experienced in Nigeria in the last 62 years. This government came with the, with the mantle that, Nigerians will see a better Nigeria. But today, so many Nigerians are now asking questions around this government. And that now takes me to the first of what we can say happened prior to Buhari becoming an official, president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let me go back to one of his speech at the Chatham House. He says, and I quote, which is the theme of his conversation: prospect for democratic consolidation in Africa, Nigeria transition. There was a lot of issues that maybe Jonathan was not going to allow power to be taken away from PDP. So there was tension in Nigeria prior to 2015. The tension also was whether Nigeria will break up. And the same tension is slightly different this time around. And I want you to take note, because this time around, there are more indigenous people that have now questioned not just the performance of the APC government, but they are now also asking the question around who actually gave the audacity to the British Empire to merge Nigeria into what is now known as Nigeria today. So that means that in 2023, we will see a lot of changes. And some of these changes will change that, the picture of what Nigeria used to look like, for those of you that are probably familiar with Nigeria. Because the Biafra are saying that we don't want to be part of the Nigeria that has been created in 1914 by the British colony. The Yorubas are speaking the same language. We are not getting much from the Arewa, but we are getting much from the Middle Belt. So it is not just about the performance anymore now. It is not about, we are not going to, look into the performance, but we are also going to question the originality of what is known as Nigeria today. So let's go back to what Buhari actually said. Permit me to start by thanking Chatham House for the invitation to talk about this important topic at this crucial time. When speaking about Nigeria overseas, I normally prefer to be my country's public relation and marketing officer. Remember, extolling our virtues and hoping to attract investment and tourists. Right there, Buhari has actually, or the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, have not been able to bring in investment. Rather, tourism in Nigeria has declined. It has never been good in the first place, because nobody is going to allow their citizens to travel to one of the 6 when it comes to global terrorism index. And that is why last month in October, we saw that the American issued evacuation for some of their staff and colleagues and family that are working in Abuja, the capital city. So if anyone is still thinking that what Buhari said in 2015, in reality, You just have to now understand that this is the most failed government that Nigerians have ever witnessed. But as we all know, Nigeria is now battling with many challenges. And if I refer to them, I do so only to impress our friends in the United Kingdom that we are quite aware of our shortcomings and are doing our best to address them. Remember, Buhari gave information to the Western world that Jonathan was not tackling the insecurity in Nigeria. And if he becomes the president, he will be able to tackle the insecurity probably after he has left office. And as expected, Tinubu is thinking he will take the battle from where Buhari stopped. The 2015 general election in Nigeria is generating a lot of interest within and outside the country. This is understandable. And again, the next sentence is part of the lies that we have been told that Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, the largest economy, is at a defining moment. A moment that has great implications beyond the democratic project and beyond the borders of my dear country. Again, these are the words of President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015, precisely 26th of February, Thursday, here in London at Chatham House. So let me say up front that the global interest in Nigerian landmark election is not misplaced at all, and indeed should be commended. For this is an election that has serious import for the world. I urge the international community to continue to focus on Nigeria at this very critical moment. Given increasing global linkages, it is in our collective interest that a postponed election should hold on the rescheduled date, that should be free and fair, that their outcome should be respected by all parties, and that any form of extension under whichever guise is unconstitutional and will not be tolerated. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, again, Buhari is reminding us also of the dissolution of the USSR in 1991, the collapse of the communists and the end of the Cold War. Democracy became the dominant and the most preferred system of government across the globe. I am not sure whether the Yorubas or the Biafras or the Middle Belt that are now saying that we are interested in the political party or the political affiliation in Nigeria. We would like to take back the control of our sovereignty and have our own independent nation, just as we saw the collapse of the USSR in 1991. That the global transition has been aptly captured as the triumph of democracy and the most preeminent political ideal of our time. On a personal note, the phrase "end of the USSR" was a turning point for me. So Buhari was giving us that the face of the USSR collapse was the turning point for him. And I hope that he would also now remember that those that are campaigning for the right to self-determination will also make Nigeria, just as we saw in 1991. It convinced me that the change can be brought out without firing a single shot. I want you to take note of that. Buhari reminded every one of us in 2015 at Chatham House that he is convinced that the change can be brought about without firing a single shot. And the question then is, why should we have a single shot when the Yorubas are going to be coming out in their millions for the super rally that will lead to the announcement that will take them out of what is known as Nigeria today? And the same thing about the Biafra that are saying that we are no longer interested to be part of the system known as Nigeria, just as the Middle Belt. Let's continue. Once again, we welcome you to Star Radio UK at exactly 23 minutes past 1800 hours in London. As you all know, I had been a military head of state in Nigeria for 20 months. Buhari is actually reminding us in 2015, prior before the election, that he has been a military head of state. But he was never telling you that that was something that was done through a coup d'etat. That he actually overthrown a civilian government in 1983. We intervened because we were unhappy with the state of affairs in our country. We wanted to arrest the drift driven by patriotism, influenced by the prevalence and the popularity of such drastic measures all over Africa and elsewhere. We fought our way to power, but the global triumph of democracy has shown that another and preferable path to change is possible. It is an important lesson, and I've carried with me since, and a lesson that is not lost on the African continent. Once again, this is Star Radio UK, where you can join me every Wednesday, where we look at the issues affecting the indigenous people, the self-determination, the Yorubas, the Biafra, the Middle Belt, and those that are still campaigning, for the election in Nigeria come 2023. Let's finish what Buhari said in 2015. In the last 2 decades, democracy has grown strong root in Africa. Elections, once so rare, are now so commonplace. As at the time I was a military head of state between 1983 and 1985, in a coup d'etat that you actually did by overthrowing a government in place, only 4 African countries held regular multi-party elections. But the number of electoral democracy in Africa, according to Freedom House, have jumped to 10 in 1992-1993, then to 18 in 1994-1995, to 24 in 2005-2006, according to the New York Times. 42 of the 48 countries in sub-Saharan Africa conducted multi-party elections between 1990 and 2002. Whether they are free or fair is a different thing entirely. Now, let me just, leave that for a time being and take you to what happened outside Chatham House. Just as we saw what play out, where we have the supporter of Tinubu and also those that are asking for the right to self-determination on Monday. We also saw some of the, the PDP that were also there, protesting against, Bola Ahmed Tinubu right there at Chatham House. But the first, video that we've lined up was in 2015, and the headline as at then was presidential candidate Buhari promised to crush the Boko Haram. Let us listen to this.
So we're outside Chatham House, where the opposition presidential candidate, General Buhari, is meant to be given a lecture. Now, as you can see, there's a protest outside Chatham House. There are actually people. This is Buhari. That over there is anti-Buhari.
I know those of you on the Star Radio UK, you might not be able to see the images, but you can follow, the voice that is coming out of the video that we are playing, and we do not own the copyright to that as well. So now this was the interview that Buhari granted to, one of the media here in London, before he became the official president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let's go back to that.
I just want to start by talking about the protest that we can hear from outside. Pro and anti-Buhari shows how divisive you are. What do you make of it?
Well, that's the beauty of democracy. Let people express their opinions one way or the other. As long as they do it peacefully, it has to be accommodated by the system.
Now, when the elections were postponed about 3 weeks ago, you were opposed to that postponement. A lot of people were surprised because they thought...
Let us remember that this same government have also postponed an election, which was the last one, because I was at home and that election was postponed midnight, and a lot of Nigerians were waking up to realize that the election has been postponed. So it's not just about Jonathan postponing that election before 2015, but also APC government have done the same thing. Just for those that probably are not familiar, with the Nigerian politics.
Well, the northeast, where there's a security challenge for the government, where the government says we have to, sort out the security there, is where many people believe you have your core supporters. Why did you oppose it?
No, I don't believe in favor with that here, because if the election can be conducted in Afghanistan, in Pakistan.
Okay, Buhari is comparing in 2015 that if election, can be conducted, in Afghanistan, even in the midst of the chaos, there was no reason why Jonathan should have postponed that election. And we are hoping that, as they are preparing for the election, we hope there's not going to be any coup, and we hope they are not also going to bring in a magic wonder, because there's a lot of intelligence that this government is not going to allow an election to be performed in 2023.
Yeah. Why election can't be held in Nigeria where only 14 local governments are really involved?
One of the first things that you will tackle when you get it.
And I want you to take note of these. The question that was put to Buhari in 2015, prior before he became the president fully.
The power, if you get into power, will be Boko Haram. Now, if you know how to tackle Boko Haram, as a concerned Nigerian, why haven't you advised the government on how to do it?
Not the government is rather on security. But if you know the amount of troops and policemen and state security personnel deployed for Ekiti election, for a by-election, the amount of troops and ordnance deployed in Ekiti would have been enough to secure.
Remember, this government postponed the same election, the last one, prior to, a lot of Nigerians, in the hope that, that election was going to be held. I was actually in Nigeria, and that election was postponed.
The two of us.
So if you got into power, you're saying that you would use full force to fight Boko Haram, and not necessarily peace negotiations, as some of your detractors are saying you might use, because some people say, your party sponsors Boko Haram.
Boko Haram is not interested in peace. If they are in peace, how can they kill 13,000 Nigerians? Why should they go and kill children when they are sleeping in their dormitories? Why should they bomb churches and mosques and marketplaces and window parks? They are not interested in peace.
When you overthrew a democratically elected government in 1983,
yes.
You just threw everybody in prison.
No, not everybody. I didn't throw him in prison.
I wasn't a politician then, but lots of public office holders you threw in prison. Is that what you're still planning to do?
That's a misconception of what happened. People who held places of responsibility, governors, ministers, head of sectors, that we had documentary evidence against them, are the ones that we took before the tribunal. People going along the road on the street just because they are big politicians, nobody even talks to them.
I'm going to ask you about this because it's a talking point in Nigeria now. It's a talking point on social media. Everybody's wondering about it. They said you came to London to seek medical help. You're not healthy enough to stand for the elections. Do you want to clarify the state of your health?
I'm fit as I feel.
Well, he's fit as he can, but he has spent more time in London, taking medical treatment. Once again, a very good evening to everyone that have joined us. This is Niger Voices on Star Radio UK every Wednesday, and the time now is just coming up to 18:32 right here in London.
I have just finished touring 35 states of the 36 states. I have conducted town hall meetings in Lagos, in Kano, in Abuja.
Okay, so Buhari has actually proved that he is fit. There's nothing wrong with him. But up to today, nobody knows what kind of illness that he has been here in London. And there's a lot of record to show that ever since he's been coming to UK, since he came to power, he has spent at least some months and weeks here. And the last one was not too long ago when he also had opportunity to visit, King Charles III. Now let's come back a little bit. Listen to Buhari's speech in 2015, prior before becoming the president. You would have expected that when Buhari get to power, there will be a lot of changes, the Boko Haram issues, the ISWAP, the porous borders, investment would be done to the military and there will be less atrocity. Let's take you back to the next line of how Buhari was sworn in. This was the speech at the Chatham House, and let's kind of listen to that. This is Buhari's speech at Chatham House some almost 7 years ago.
Nigeria, Africa's most populous country and largest economy, is at a defining moment, a moment that has great implications beyond the democratic project and beyond the borders of my dear country. So let me say upfront that the global interest in Nigeria's landmark election is not misplaced at all, and indeed should be commended, for this is an election that has serious import for the world. I ask the international community to continue to focus on Nigeria at this very critical moment. Given increasing global linkages, it is in our collective interest that the postponed elections should hold on the scheduled dates, that they should be free and fair, that their outcomes should be respected by all parties, and that any form of extension under whatever guise is unconstitutional and will not be tolerated. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the dissolution of the USSR in 1991, the collapse of communism, and the end of the Cold War, democracy became the dominant and most preferred system of government across the globe.
Well, that was some of the part of the speech at Chatham House when Buhari was actually, speaking there, to, some of the audience and the international community. But what has happened? What has been the changes? Have your life been better? Let's quickly give a bit of a background, to some of the, statistics that we have here when we compare, what has happened in 2015 up to now. Behind me, as the engineer has put it out there, in 2015, Nigerians were buying fuel at 87 naira per liter. It is not even longer 180 naira, so that needs to be updated. The rice needs to be updated because some of the prices have changed rapidly, in the last couple of months. As of today, in some part of Nigeria, per liter is about 350 naira. And for those of us that are probably outside Nigeria, so a pound today is worth 900 naira. So you are going to be buying probably about 50 pence, or thereabout, per liter, should you be operating a vehicle in Nigeria. In 2015, with the Jonathan government, a bag of rice was 8,500 naira. Buhari came in and he promised, that Nigerians, will be given a lot of food, growing our rice rather than importing that was consuming a lot of dollars that Nigerian, the government doesn't have. A bag of rice today is now about almost 48 to 50,000 naira, depending on where you're buying it from. The dollar, which is behind me again, says, we're about almost 219 naira to a dollar. But today, that has actually gone up. We're looking at about almost 8 to 850 naira to a dollar. Our external debt, again has risen, and so on and so forth. But the question is, what happened after Buhari took over power? Let's go back to that inauguration that took place, right there. No, before that, this was Buhari speaking again. What is Boko Haram? Buhari was actually telling, a reporter of one of the mainstream media in UK that what is Boko Haram? Boko Haram is nothing. When I get to power, I will be able to crush Boko Haram. Should we now say that APC has been one of the most failed government that Nigerians have ever witnessed since 1999, or even as worst as we've ever seen, even during the military era? This is Buhari, the Nigerian opposition candidate, in defiance about Boko Haram. Let us listen to this. For those of you that are watching us on the sister broadcast, you can see the images. But if you're watching me on Star Radio UK, you will be able to get the voice coming through.
It's been pretty clear for some time that Nigeria's incumbent president, Goodluck Jonathan, had wanted to postpone this Valentine's Day election, which was shaping up to be the closest fought contest in Nigeria's modern history. Goodluck Jonathan, a Christian from the south, is up against a former military dictator, General Muhammadu Buhari, a Muslim from the north. He is tough on corruption and reckons, as a former soldier, he can get rid of the menace of Boko Haram, something Goodluck Jonathan has failed to do. Rumours of a 6-week postponement started filtering through around noon today as many opposition party leaders were attending the colourful coronation ceremony of the 57th Emir of Kano. Among dozens of local kings, traditional rulers and state governors, General Buhari sat centre stage. Next to him, another former military head of state, General Yakubu Gowon. After the ceremony, we met General Buhari at the Kano State Governor's office. He said the reports of postponement were news to him, and that he'd not been officially informed of any such decision by Nigeria's Independent Electoral Commission.
The news is going around, and why I need to go around, but I'm telling you what I know that should be practically on the ground.
Would you support postponement?
No, I will not support it.
What could happen if there is postponement? Would it not be to your political advantage, sir?
No, I don't think so. It took INEC 1 year to work out and give us I see no reason why we should postpone it.
Remember that Buhari government also postponed this election. I'm talking about the last election that is currently running almost about less than a month or 2 months, before the election in 2023. But the point that I want us to take note from this interview is coming up now.
And governments that are changing for law, 2 in Yobe, 2 in Adamawa, and there are 770 local governments in Nigeria. Have we postponed election because of local governments? What would you do about it if I do this? Well, what my party will do, what the new party this year. Thank you very much.
Sorry, about Boko Haram, the election commission said Boko Haram is the main reason they're doing this.
Let's get what he has to say here. Okay, Buhari was able to tell us, what is Boko Haram? But Boko Haram, for the benefit of those of you that are not familiar, with Boko Haram, according to what we know, officially known as the Jama'atu al-Satsuna Lidahua Wal Jihad, is an Islamic terrorist organization. Is no longer based in the northeastern Nigeria, which is also active in Chad, Niger, and the northern Cameroon. But we can now find the Boko Haram operating with impunity in the southwest of Nigeria, in the middle belt of Nigeria, and likewise in the southeast part of Nigeria today. Some of the atrocities of these deadly jihadist terrorists, just about some few hours or some few days ago, Nigeria could not even resume train services for 9 months. So if you are from Africa or you're European, you're from the other continent, and you're wondering, what am I talking about? I'm talking about this man right there, sitting there with a toothpick in his mouth, and so many Nigerians, that have now become, running out of the country, known as Japa. So the moment they can get any visa to any country, they are not planning to return back to Nigeria because of the economy, the insecurity, and a lot of other issues affecting them as well. Nigeria, as we speak today, China is now also concerned that China is saying that we were able to at least, bring out almost 700 million Nigerian, not Nigerian, 700 Chinese, out of abject poverty. But the Nigerian have not been able to do so. So, China, from the headline that we gave this morning, China is concerned when it comes to the amount of Nigerians that have now been stuck in what is known as abject poverty. So we have almost 100 million Nigerians today, and that statistic is even wrong. I'm talking about almost 133 million. So one of the headline, and we're going to be discussing the headline as well. We'll open the phone line at around about 7:30, which is going to allow you to also participate should you want to do so. We are worried 100 million Nigerians live below poverty line, according to the Chinese ambassador in Nigeria. But he's actually saying that we have lifted more than 700 people out of poverty in China, but in Nigeria, there's only about 200 million of us, while half of that are living in below poverty line. So let's go back again to Boko Haram. Some of the atrocities of Boko Haram, is what is going to be coming up behind you when in March this year, 28th of March, as Nigerians were boarding the train from Abuja going to Kaduna, the Boko Haram terrorists were also preparing their own carnage. And that led to death. That led to so many Nigerians questioning again the activities and the activeness of these Boko Haram in what is now becoming a really, really dead trap for those that are traveling. The train services have actually resumed after 9 months. 9 months, the government could not operate the train services that led to the death of so many Nigerians, with the Boko Haram atrocity on the 28th of March 2022. The former Minister for Education, as of the time, also said, and I quote, that he warned the government of President Muhammadu Buhari of the APC that life will be lost. These are some of the atrocities of the Boko Haram. We know that the military are saying that they are doing everything within their possibly best to make sure that they can at least bring normality back into Nigeria. But the international community are saying all kind of different news as well. We know that about 5,700 Nigerians who fled Boko Haram attacks have returned, according to official. So that means it's a good news, right? Thousands of residents in the northeastern Nigeria who took shelter in the neighboring countries following attacks by the Boko Haram terrorist organization have returned to their homes, an official said on Sunday. According to Air Vice Marshal retired Lawal Alao, Vice Chairman of the Victim Support Fund, said in a statement that about 6,000 people who fled Boko Haram attacks 6 years ago and took refuge in Cameroon and Niger have returned to their hometown after Nigerian army restored security in Mata area of Borno State. Interesting one. But we also know that the same Boko Haram is still very, very active. Yesterday in Abuja, even though Alhaji Lai Mohammed, the Minister for Information in Nigeria, told us in October that there is no cause for alarm over security threats. This was in October. But yesterday, 7 people are missing, 1 killed, again by the Boko Haram jihadist terrorists operating in Nigeria. But you would expect that when President Muhammadu Buhari was actually sworn in, that would give him, that opportunity. That would give him that, opportunity to at least change the narrative. And the next video that we're about to play is when President Muhammadu Buhari again was sworn in 2015. Let us listen to that. Once again, this is Star Radio UK, your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. This was swearing-in ceremony in Abuja, known as #Nigeria 2015. Right on my screen, I could see Jonathan leaving straight away out of the venue, while President Muhammadu Buhari will be sworn in. So that was the final for President Goodluck Jonathan in 2015, as Buhari will now be sworn in. These are all the activities that was taking place.
Jonathan, acknowledging dignitaries on the land. Your hands together as the rise, please. Please.
Once again, a very good evening and welcome to those of you that are watching us from around the world as we continue to give you all the review of this government of President Muhammadu Buhari and the APC, taking, power in 2015. And I think we have that. I want to play exactly when Buhari was being sworn in as against when Jonathan was leaving. So, and I guess we should have that ready in just about a few minutes. Once again, this is Star Radio UK. It is your finest. And yes, we have Buhari now being seated, standing up on his way.
The moment is finally here.
Well, this, according to
the President-elect Muhammad Buhari going to the podium to take his oath of office. In a moment,
in 2015, he took his oath of office, giving the full assurance that it will secure Nigerians and it will make sure the lives of an average Nigerian is much better.
And this very moment itself, the President-elect.
Yes, just a moment away. And we can see the President for now, President Goodluck Jonathan, standing and watching closely. Mary, does it ever remind you of taking wedding vows? How, both of them walk in there single and then turn around and you're married forever. Well,
unless he wants to renew his vow.
So what we're about to listen to now was the swearing in and what Buhari actually said. Let's listen a little bit more.
And defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it has been well. I, Muhammad Buhari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Buhari told us that he will be faithful and making sure that he would, and you can see him there in Asa Rock again, always in relaxing mode. My question now is, as I'm going to be throwing this out to those of you that are listening to us, is looking at the APC government, what score line will you give these government? And I want to take note of that as we're going into the next slide of the program that we've lined up for you as we continue to review these government activities. Once again, I say good evening and welcome to Star Radio UK, your finest African. The next one that I'm going to play to you now was actually the interview that Buhari granted recently, not too long ago, to one of the mainstream media, and let us, watch this interview carefully to what Buhari actually said, during that interview. Once again, this is Star Radio UK. Here we go.
Walked in at about 8:30 p.m. to New Year greetings from my colleague and I. And after settling in, we get right to it. In his New Year Day statement to Nigerians, President Buhari had said, security remains on the front burner, and that is precisely where we start.
Your New Year speech. And in that speech, you told Nigerians, you said, and I quote, the persistent insecurity in certain parts of the country now threaten to unravel the incremental gains achieved. Did you envisage the enormity of the task when you promised to tackle insecurity as President and Commander-in-Chief of our country?
Well, I think you can recall that when I was campaigning, right, 2015, there are three fundamental issues: security, economy, and fighting corruption. And for Nigerians to be fair to this administration is to try and find out, from the time we won the election in 2015 to now, in the three promises we made: improving security, improving the economy, and trying to fight corruption. Well, situated in the country, in the northeast, if you ask anybody from Borno State, from Yobe State, from Adamawa State, there are a number of local governments, about 18, that were in the hands of Boko Haram. None of any local government now is strictly in the hands of Boko Haram or ISWAP. So, in that respect, we have done something. The economy, don't forget, and I challenge so many people to go and check with the central bank or NHCC, the production from 1999 to 2014 was 2.1 million barrels a day, average production, at the average cost of $100 American per barrel. When we came, somehow the military were unleashed in the south. Production went down to 500,000 barrels a day. And I think by some fabulous coincidence, the price again collapsed to about $37 per barrel. But look at what we did within the time frame and the resources available to us relative to the government we inherited.
Well, the economy and security are two very pressing areas, Mr. President, and I'm sure that over and over again we'll keep going there. You talked about how the militants were unleashed. Some people were saying that President Erdogan also faced that crisis when he ascended, when he became president, and that was one of the reasons why he had to, come up with the amnesty program. But I'll take you back again to security. You've spoken about the progress we've made in the Northeast, and that is true. The camps are being emptied. The Northwest continues to be of concern, where we see bandits, unleashed in many parts of the Northwest, sometimes getting to the North Central of the country. Would you say that we understand fully the problems we're currently facing in terms of security in the Northwest?
In the Northwest, it's the same people, the same culture, stealing each other's animals, killing each other, burning villages. So I think the only language they understand, we discuss it thoroughly with the law enforcement agencies, the service chiefs, the Inspector General of Police, is to go after, the terrorists. We label them terrorists, and we are going to deal with them with such. And I believe if you go to those constituencies in the Northwest and North Central, during the last suppose there are improvements in the security.
Okay, Buhari is able to, argue with that interview that he granted that security has been improved. Whether Nigerians agree with that, you'll be able to tell me when I open the phone line, very soon. But I'll be reading some of your comments as well in just a few minutes. I don't agree with this government that security has improved. What we have seen is, the lives of more Nigerians is now at stake. More Nigerians are becoming, victim of the insecurity in Nigeria, and we have, dozens of evidence around that we can, discuss from now, to some of our listeners that are watching us from around the world. Definitely the government, has been trying to portray the insecurity as nothing. But when you go back to what do we understand by insecurity, insecurity also have big impact on the food economy of the country. So if farmers can't get to the farm, that means we have a lot of issues, and we've seen that affecting the inflation and all sorts as well. But let me look at what we have here. Nigeria insecurity grieves the nation's capital. Attack threat by multiple groups are raising serious concerns, according to this report. Abuja, a series of attacks and the threat within the close proximity of the Nigerian seat of government in Abuja by the Islamics and other armed groups are causing fear and apprehension among citizens in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, and across the country. This is according to the Human Rights Watch. The Nigerian Police Force has also assured the citizen that they have scaled up security in the federal region, which includes Abuja. But these attacks and threats, even to kidnap the president, indicate an alarming, of the nation's security situation. And we saw that, when the motorcade of the president was attacked, on their way to Castina. The authorities need to ensure that adequate security for all civilians while also respecting the human right. The recent event unfolding in the capital, as at yesterday, about almost 8 individuals, were kidnapped. 2 of them were able to manage to escape. 1 has been killed, and all these right inside the capital city, Abuja. Many Nigerians fear that the threat from the Islamic insurgents and all these other armed groups are now national threats that have reached the critical level. I'm not sure whether Buhari agrees. Let's take you back again to that interview.
It is true. Because the farmers' herders crisis was one that was a big challenge a few years back, and maybe a few months back as well. It's come down somewhat, but some people are attributing it to the seasons. They think it's about the weather. And that now that we're entering the peak of the dry season, perhaps we could see a resurgence again. Would you say that we have dealt with that problem once and for all, or do you fear that it could rear its head again?
We cannot do much about the weather, but about the security, we have taken steps.
Okay, the president is giving the impression that he has actually taken a lot of steps, to make sure that Nigerians are safe. So I am asking Nigerians at home this evening, if you're watching me, are you safe? And if you're safe, what part of Nigeria are you that is safe? And when I mean safe, are you safe in your bank account with the inflation? Are you safe with the security from moving around, even Lagos, where there's now evidence of Islamic terrorists operating, and also at the boundary routes and the highways, and as well the economy? So these are questions that I'm now putting to some of you, our listeners, and I'll be reading some of your comments later on as well. But in under half an hour, we will open the phone line, but the number to call will be +44 74 04 405917. That number will allow you to contribute and tell us what is your stake in the last 8 years of this failed government. According to me, it could be different from your views, but it will be nice to read from you. You're watching Star Radio UK. It is your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London, and every Wednesday Niger Voices comes on air from just about 6 p.m. to about 8:30 p.m. where we look at the views of a lot of issues affecting Nigerians. And also I will now be moving slightly away from the discussion of President Muhammadu Buhari and coming back to, what are we, for those of us that have been campaigning, for the right to self-determination and all other issues as well. Once again, a very good evening to those of you that are sitting right there on the Star Radio UK platforms. Antonia Dedeji, good evening to you. Evangelist Taiwo Esther, good evening to you, ma. Moreni Kayo Badejo, good evening to you. And likewise, Kunle Adeyemi, good evening as well. Let me take you straight to those of you that are watching us on the Star Radio UK YouTube channel. I say good evening to my beautiful mother. Welcome on board. Maze Gold, good evening to you. And let's quickly go to other platforms as well. Mrs. Grace Olushoto, good evening to you. Adekunle Adepoju, good evening to you. Victor Olabambo, a very good evening to you as well. Quite a lot, discussion there. Let's take you back again to what Buhari said, and then we will move swiftly into the right to self-determination.
And we are seeing the results, and we thank God for that. For the other, we can only pray and hope that whether they are mentioning the climate change, try and make sure that we prepare the grazing areas, earth dams, wind mills, even veterinary departments, so that they are.
Well, we're going to leave that for now, and let's come back now. And I said once again, thank you so much. Let me quickly say good evening to Lukman Bamiduro, Wale Show, good evening to you. Adedeji Temidayo, good evening to you. And good evening to you, Abayomi Olugbode, good evening to you. Adegbaju Olaposi, Shitu S. Omaomi, good evening to you. Esther Olawale, good evening to you, ma. Good evening to you also, Oluwasoji Matthew Alabi, Adenike Gbadero, good evening to you, ma. Good evening to you, Babatunde, and good evening, Idris Abimbola, Brother John, good evening to you, and likewise, good evening to Olani Sukami, Prince Mark Konjuola, good evening to you, Daniel Niyi, Kafilat, good evening to you, ma. Good evening to you, Olakunle Ajayi, Famo 4, Shino Peter, good evening to you, and good evening to you, Sharif Mohammed. You actually say the dollar is 900 naira as against 850. Adedare Adebayo, good evening to you. Fatai Usman, Mojirade Adeyemi, good evening to you. Everything Lori Raw, you said in that your comment section there. Watching from Idiroko, Daniel, good evening to every one of you at Idiroko. Shitu Omaomi, good evening to you. Good evening to you for those of you in Yewa, in Libya, in every part of the globe where you're watching Star Radio UK. And I say good evening to you, Sulaiman Adeshina. Let's quickly say good evening to those of you that are watching us on the other platforms, on the YouTube. Quite a lot of you there, Mrs. Ojora Elizabeth. Good evening to you. Raimi Abbas, you say Yoruba Nation not going back. Someone say there's no voice on YouTube. It could probably be from your end. There's no way there's no voice on YouTube. Maybe you want to come back in and come back out. Rukayat Omaomi, good evening to you. All hail Biafra. Good evening to you as well. Good evening to Ade Williams. Imagine, okay, I missed that. Imagine Jack Conde was able to build metro line. Na una Boko Hari. I'm not going to use the next word. Yoruba Nation not to move to the next level. Mrs. Sharifat Agbabiaka, good evening to you. Ruth, good evening to you. Waris Jinodo, quite a lot of comment from you as well. Kudus Agbabiaka, good evening to you as well. Warish Dinadu say Nigeria limit cash withdrawal to force CBDC usage. Also, good evening to you, Adebanjo Sunday. And Nigeria to save life now. Only solution now is Ominira Yoruba Nation no going back. And good evening to you, Brian Bello, Christina Ademola. Good evening to you, Julia Tosin. Good evening to you, Esther Obadari. Good evening to you, and everyone that is listening to us on the Mix LR, and likewise every single one of you on our Instagram platforms as well. We're going to open the phone line, but that will be in just about 20 minutes from now. Good evening to you, Oluwadamilare Falojo. You say, Yomi, my main concerns are, why is it difficult to abrogate the superimposed fake 1999 constitution promulgated by the military regime of retired General Abubakar under the guise of we the people? It is very obvious, according to you, and the glaring that the British government, in conjunction with the monarchy, are in strong support of the fake document. I think I went too far. Let's take off back a little bit so that I can read that your comment out. Fake document adopted in governing the Nigerian people. It has never only to act on the pretense of bilateral relations. See what will eventually become the Nigerian national language after the hazard introduction of different ethnic dialect in teaching from primary to secondary school levels. What is the overall objective behind this program? Currently, the federal government of Nigeria has surreptitiously adopted and are published to the whole world the Fulani language, Fufude, as recognized of Nigerian language. D, according to the statement by the former president Ebele Jonathan, Nigeria is not a nation and there is no Nigeria. Nigeria is a geographical space composed of various ethnic groups and dialects who cannot communicate effectively, neither understand each other. E, Nigeria is a creation of the British for their trade and economic benefit. Therefore, the British government is holding tight in the rein and will not follow its breakup. F, self-determination is a fundamental right, and that is the only weapon in our possession to our Yoruba sovereign nation. And that is quite a lot, coming from, one of our listeners there. Good evening to you, Olayomi Bamidele Martins. And I say thank you so much, for that very detailed, write-up coming from Oluwadamilare Falojo. Eziribe Ezekiel, Biafra and Yoruba Nation now. Grace Olushoto, good evening to you as well. You say good evening, beautiful evening to you, Olayomi Koiki, White Lion of the media, and everyone on board tonight. Oladele Kayode, good evening to you. Adekunle Adepoju, I've tried to reach out to you, and I hope you will respond back to my WhatsApp. And it seems that you are doing very well since we can find you here. Clement is watching us from Indonesia. Wow, quite a long distance there. Ajani Ajala, good evening to you. Adeshina Olokodano says it is a total disaster, this APC government. Okay. Olada Potoyin, good evening to you, ma. Aki Sunday Olorun Gbot Ohumi, you are a man, White Lion. May God Almighty gives you more wisdom and knowledge. Thank you. Alaja Idiatu Muraino Folani, good evening to you. Kasali Mutairu Biodu, good evening to you. Olayemi Babatunde, Christina Bamidele Yaudua, Omo Olabisi, good evening to you. Adebayo Okikiola Emmanuel said the time is now. And I say good evening to those of you that we've been unable to mention your name from all the platforms you're watching us from. Let's come back to self-determination. Official Martins Luther King, good evening to you as well. Adam Olamilekon, Miss Good, good evening, and the rest of you that you are probably. Ama Uche, no 2023 election in Biafra land, no election in Oduduwa land. Also, I'll be giving you some of the headlines that on the night. Let me quickly touch on that now that we are now on the self-determination conversation. As the Biafras are also saying that they have the right to self-determination, there are also some of the news that is coming, from Biafra land, and likewise, I'll be telling you about some of the rally that is coming up this Saturday in Ondo State. But one thing I want you to take note that these are the days that the Biafra are expected to stay indoor, starting from Friday, this coming Friday, the 9th of December, Saturday, the 10th of December, Sunday, also the 10th of December. Likewise, the Sunday, 11th of December, Monday, the 12th of December, and likewise, you would then come out a little bit, and then on Wednesday, you would then be expected to go back in. This is coming from Simon Ekpa, the spokesperson for the Biafra as well. So we'll continue to monitor. Very, very important announcement, in the Biafra land. Please and please, if you are right there in Biafra land, you're a Yoruba person, let us adhere to all these announcements. It is not a joke, because it is part of the right to self-determination. So make sure that, if you're in Biafra land from Friday, try and get as many food if you can, for those 5 days. And for those of you that are already complaining that, it is too long, remember that the 1999 Constitution has been forced on us, just as my brother was saying there. Good evening to you, Mrs. Jumake Basirat. Good evening to you, T. Blaise. Good evening to those of you in Cairo, in Oman, in Libya, in Afghanistan, wherever you're watching us. Remember that the 1999 Constitution has been used without we the people since 1999, almost 23 years. So 5 days is not more than enough for you to stay indoor. Let's go back and discuss, these rights to self-determination again. What are the rights to those indigenous people, and what do you need to know as the preparation for the Super Rally announcement is all being waited for, as we continue to wait from Benin Republic, where the announcement will be given to us. But it is important that United Nations do not give countries, but we also, as the indigenous people under the United Nations, have the right. United Nations Declaration on the Right of the Indigenous People is a very, very important for those of you back home to understand. United Nations Declaration on the Right of the Indigenous People, all these are something that Nigerians that are probably not aware needs to understand that a resolution was actually adopted at the General Assembly on the 13th of September 2007. United Nations Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People. What do we understand by the word indigenous people? The indigenous people are those that speak the same language. Indigenous people are those that also have similarity together. But today, as Nigerians, there is about almost 373 ethnic groups that was put together by the British government in 1914. So when you are asked what is the meaning of indigenous people, indigenous people are distinct. The Yorubas love the Igbo, we love the Hausa, we love the Kanuri, we love the the Efik, all the other ethnic groups, but we are not meant to be together. All these was forced on us by the British colony in 1914. And that is why we are saying that our right to self-determination is now or never. And like Archie always say in the morning, when you believe in a cause, you must fight for those cause. Indigenous people are distinct social and cultural groups that share collective ancestral ties to the land. The land that we are discussing, if you look at the map from Kwara all the way down, is not the one of Benue or Yobe or Kaduna or Zamfara. Those indigenous people are the ones that owns and control those territory prior to the 1914 amalgamation. We used to be a kingdom, just as the United Kingdom. These were things that a lot of us were not told for a very long time. But today, with a lot of education, with a lot of awareness and campaign, we continue to tell those at home that our right to self-determination cannot be trampled on by any politicians or the federal government of Nigeria. There is nothing called Nigerians. we are Yorubas before Nigeria. And we have been in existence for thousands of years before the British Empire, the British colony came in and destroyed who we are as indigenous people. First, people redirect. Indigenous people are culturally distinct. And how do we identify who we are as indigenous people? We speak the same language. We not just speak the same language, we have cultural tie to our territory, our land. And if we are not careful to remain in Nigeria, for those that are saying that we should continue to remain in Nigeria, we would also lose our indigenous cultural language. A lot of Yorubas at home are no longer speaking Yoruba because it is not a compulsory language. You have the option that when you go to any bank today, you will be communicating in English. If we have a Yoruba nation today, it will no longer be in English. It will have to be first language. Well, not the first language, but it will be the language that we'll be speaking. Just as German, the Norwegians, the Chinese. There's no way you go to a Chinese bank and you will be speaking English. You will be expected to communicate in their own language. The term indigenous was first its modern context used by the Europeans, who used it to differentiate indigenous peoples of the Americans from the European settlers of the Americans and from Africans, who were brought to America as slaves, as an enslaved people. The term may have first been used in this context by Sir Thomas Browne in 1646, who stated, and although in many parts thereof there be at the present swarms of the Negroes serving under the Spaniard, yet were they all transported from Africa. Since the discovery of Columbus, and not the indigenous people of the proper natives of America. Peoples are usually described as indigenous when they maintain traditions or other aspect of an early culture that is associated with the first inhabitant of a given region. So when we say that the Yorubas are indigenous people, for those that are still claiming to be Nigerians, you must first claim your Yorubaness before being in Nigeria, because there was nothing in Nigeria up until the 1914 fraudulent amalgamation by the British Empire. Also, not all indigenous people share these characteristics, as many have adopted substantial elements of what we now call the colonialism culture. We are actually now identifying ourselves as the Western world rather than who we are as the Yorubas. A lot of us do not have the tribal mark because we were actually told that the tribal mark is not who we are. But there are still some of our leaders, those that cherish these kind of tribal marks. People that believe that our culture, our people should not go into extinction. People that believe in the cause of the Yoruba Nation movement. And there's no one further more than a Yoruba man known as Chief Dr. Sunday Adeyemo Igboho, popularly known as Sunday Igboho. There's nowhere in the world that it will actually travel to. It will quickly be identified through his tribal beautiful mark as a Yoruba man. I don't have the big ones, but I believe I have the smaller version. But when we look at the indigenous people, we will talk about Dr. Chief Sunday Adeyemo Igboho. And if you look at his beautiful tribal mark, it shows that if we are not careful, in another 40 years, we will lose those tribal marks. In the next 60 years, should we remain in Nigeria, these tribal marks will go into extinction because nobody would love to have them, because everybody wants to look cool like the Western world without a tribal mark? How many of us living in Europe or living in the United Kingdom, in Asia, in any other continent outside the Yoruba side, probably maybe in Benin Republic, they are still giving tribal mark? Let's be realistic. How many of us have wake up to say that when I give birth to a beautiful son or daughter, I would then give them a tribal mark? These are part of our identity. These are part of who we are. And we must cherish these things that is going into extinction should we remain in Nigeria as a country. But when we have our own country, you might not be given, a tribal mark, but there will be so many things that will quickly identify us around the globe that these are the Yorubas that we have been waiting for. But should we remain in Nigeria, those identity will not be popping up. Imagine that if Wales, that a population of less than 3 million, is representing their country in the Qatar Football World Cup, what is wrong for the Yorubas, the Biafras, to also have similar representation? So our identity is what we are discussing as well. And should we do nothing about it now, we might lose our land that the terrorists are trying to take away. We should always remember that the name Nigeria was given not just by God, but it was all given by Lugard in 1914, when he decided to do what they called the Southern and the Northern Protectorate in 1914. And today, after more than 100 years of this amalgamation, there are some people still thinking that we should seek to remain in Nigeria. We should save Nigeria from not coming down and to be dissolved. But there are also many that are working around the clock, around the globe today, from different organizations, from the YSDM to the Yoruba One Voice, to the Global Directorate, to also the Yoruba Nation Diaspora Mega Rally, to also the Yoruba Central Office, and likewise the Agbekoya, the Farmers Hunters, to different individuals and groups that are working around the clock to encourage the right to self-determination and disagree with the 2023 election that is coming up next year in Nigeria. Not everybody agrees to that. In 4 minutes, I would open the phone line and you would also be able to now contribute yours as well. When Nigeria was given an independence in 1960, a lot of people thought the beauty of Nigeria will be showcased around the world. But what we have seen today is, it is the beauty of individual identity. We see a lot of Yorubas, Nigerians though, working tirelessly in the NHS. We see the same Igbo running all kind of different businesses around the globe with their small little shop or the big ones. The Iowa also is an identity of their own. Likewise, the Middle Belt. Nigeria can no longer hold the center. You cannot force people that don't speak the same language and they have different identity to remain inside what is known as Nigeria today. The match of what is called Nigeria today, as Ama Uche have said, is a crime that the British government of Britain have forced on every one of us. But if anybody is still thinking that a new 2023 election will give you a new Nigeria, you got to think about it now. Remember that after the review of the current government of President Muhammadu Buhari and the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and all their ministers and all the representatives of each of the governors under the APC, The question is, are you ready to allow a new government again for another 8 years where you are not sure where they are taking you to? Yes, it is your right to determine how you want to live, but we must remind you that our right has already been trampled on by the British Empire in 1914. And that is why some of us are now asking that question. Our sovereignty as the Yoruba nation, the Biafra nation, the Middle Belt nation, the Arewa nation, it is now that the world must come and listen. We don't have to wait until fires comes from different sides. Just as President Muhammadu Buhari, just to remind you, told us during his speech at the Chatham House, which I'm going to remind you again, that we don't have to have chaos before the right of the people to be given to them. Our right is now that the world, the United Nations, the international community must all come and have a roundtable discussion, because as things are going, there will be a lot of uncertainty in Nigeria come 2023. The uncertainty that we are about to experience will be different from 2015, because as of 2015, even though there was a lot of question about the unity of Nigeria, but as at that time, there was more question about the restructure of Nigeria. But tonight, as more of those international organizations, countries that have interest in Nigeria must now wake up that there are now more people known as the indigenous that are asking questions. And these questions is not anything to do with having guns or killing each other. It is a conversation that needs to be reviewed quickly under the ECOWAS, the African Union, the United Nations, to ask the question, do we still really want to be part of Nigeria, rather than thinking that there are some Nigerians that would be allowed to be forced into what is not who they want to be. As the right of everybody around the world, the Biafra has the right, the Arewa, the Middle Belt. But we know that our politicians are running up and down, campaigning to bring in a new democracy. Once again, this is Star Radio UK. It is the Wednesday edition where we look at issues affecting Nigerians and the indigenous people. This show comes up every Wednesday between 1800 hours. And the phone line is now officially open for probably just half an hour, should you want also to discuss what we have been looking at, especially the review of this APC government. Abiola Bakari, good evening to you. Walex Salami say, I just can't wait for my new nation, Yoruba nation, inshallah. Plus 4474 04405917 is the number that will take you through into the studio. And you can speak in our local language if that is what you want. As we are looking at all these issues, my question to the international and the global community is, I hope you're not going to sit behind the fence and allow catastrophe to occur in 2023. We are not sure what the present government are planning, but we are also aware that there is a lot of intelligence, and there is also intel that this government is also planning not to give power back in 2023. Let us remind ourselves that there is now desperation with all the politicians, both the PDP and the APC and the Labour Party, as we have seen that election in Nigeria is not going to solve our problem. Our problem needs to be discussed quickly on the round table. It is not too late for the United Nations, the ECOWAS, the African Union the European Union, the countries that put together the country known as Nigeria, which is Great Britain, and asked the burning question in the minds of so many Nigerians today is, do we really still want to remain in Nigeria, or do we want to opt out? The option to opt out of Nigeria is not something that we should allow not to happen. Good evening to those of you that are watching us in Ekiti State, in Ondo State. Good evening to those of you in Kwara, in Nasarawa. Good evening to those of you in Adamawa. The right to self-determination is now. And as we say, President Muhammadu Buhari have done his best. But are you going to give room for another 8 years of the APC? Are you going to give another 8 years of the PDP that was in power for 16 years during the tenure of the former president Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, also Yaradua, and the former president Olusegun Obasanjo? All these were part of the PDP that run the government on a fraudulent 1999 constitution that was said that we the people, knowing fully well that that was a military diktat, military decree 24. So as you're watching tonight, ask yourself those questions. Is Nigeria still for you? Do you still want to remain as a Nigerian or as a Yoruba or Biafra? Do you still want to remain in Nigeria where you are being used as statistics? Do you still want to remain in Nigeria where hunger has become part of you on a daily basis? There is none of the politician that can rectify and fix the problem of Nigeria. Nigeria has multiple problems, and the reason for that is the British government knows more than what we know, because this is a country that colonized Nigeria for a very long time. But tonight, on Star Radio UK Niger Voices, should we do what is necessary? And part of what is necessary will be for us to prepare our mind for the super rally. When that is going to be announced, I am not sure. But what I can tell you is, this month we have been guaranteed that the super rally will be announced, and we will all have to come out in all our towns and villages, from Kwara State to Oyo State, to Osun State to Ekiti State, to Lagos and Ogun State, to Ondo State and Kogi State. Every one of us coming out for one reason, and that reason is to tell the international community that the union between us and Nigeria is not working. It is not the same union that we got in 1960 during the independence. The union that was given to us has already expired under the regional government. And tonight, we must all wake up from our slumber. Election 2023 will not solve the current crisis that is being faced by so many Nigerians. All we are saying now to the international community, we don't want another civil war, just as we saw when the civil war that was unleashed by the Biafrans, by the government of the time in 1967, and also with the support of the Western power. The world must now understand that, as we are saying, there is tendency that there will be ignite of fire in Nigeria should the international community continue to keep mute. You cannot force people to live together when they are not interested to live together. Self-determination is a right, and that has to be respected. And that is why the engagement by all the leaders of different indigenous people is one thing that the Americans should intervene. Germany, Spain, China, all the countries around the world must not sit and wait until the crisis, until the unleashing of havoc on an individuals, groups of people that believe in their right to self-determination. We do not want to see the bloodshed of our innocent brothers and sisters, just as it has been done as we speak right now by the federal government of Nigeria as they continue to commit genocide in Nigeria today. For those at home, it has been a lot of havoc where the federal government continue to use their military might to kill innocent people in Biafra land as they look away while individuals are now securing their lives against the insecurity in Nigeria. It is the time now that the United Nations Security Council must now start talking to each other. We are telling the international community that 2023 is not the answer to our problems right now. We must come on a round table and decide the way forward for those that want to leave Nigeria, and it is a right that must be respected. The same right that has been given to countries around the world before must be respected to those that are demanding that right as well. The same right was given to those in East Timor. The same right was given to those in also South Sudan. We've seen the same right given to Eritrea. We've seen the same right given to Slovakia. We've seen the same right given to Taiwan. And there's no reason why the Yoruba, the Biafra, the Middle Belt that are demanding that same right should not be given that same right. There's no reason for that. Our right to self-determination must be respected. And as we are preparing to come out, we are giving this all advance warning, advance notice to the international community that we are aware that the federal government might like to do what they've done best by unleashing havoc. So we are giving the warning in advance that Nigeria of today is something that international community must not shy away from. This is Star Radio UK. It is called the Niger Voices every Wednesday, where we look at issues burning in Nigeria and the diaspora as well. In just about 20 minutes, I'll be looking at some of the reviews of the papers, the dailies in Nigeria. Let us continue to tell the world that our right to self-determination must be respected. For those that are saying that we should prepare for 2023, 2023 would solve the unity of Nigeria. The unity of Nigeria is already gone, and it can only now be the unity of the indigenous people. Once again, we're now going to be looking at some of your comments. Oluwaseun Okusoya, a blessed nation is on the way to their promised land, which is Yoruba nation, the blessed land full of honey and resources. Olua, I think I've read that already. Walex, I just can't wait. And thank you so much to those of you that continue to put the comment out there, quite a lot of it. Baderi Bidemi, you are just saying the truth, my brother. Roots also say Nigeria is dead. Let's see what is trending on Twitter before we look into some of the dailies. As we can say, Atlantic Ocean is trending, and I believe the reason for that is part of what Tinubu said during the interview he granted here in London. IPOB is trending. It would be nice to see why IPOB is trending. Adebolu says, not everybody reach Kanet land, but the Yorubas will be different because we are following peace way. That is why some people are tired, while some are stronger, move on. And you're quite right. As Professor Banji Akintoye, the leader of the Yoruba self-determination movement, have said, enough is that we will go through the peaceful means. So if anybody's thinking otherwise, then it is up to you to think in that direction. We have been told that it's going to be peaceful, and that is what we are standing on. But we are also telling the international community here on Star Radio UK, to note today's date at the 7th of December 2022, Wednesday edition of Nigeria Voice says that we, the Yorubas in Nigeria, would like to have their right to sovereign nation as against to be told to go for 2023. So as the IPOB is trending, I'm not sure whether we have a lot of people on Twitter. I am on Twitter. Star Radio UK is on Twitter. Tomorrow is the Property Hour on Star Radio UK. Make sure you join the Property Hour. And also, why not follow us on our website on www.starradiouk, where you'll be able to find out all the latest news, what is going on Star Radio UK, some of the podcasts, a lot of information that will help you for those of you that like to know more about some of our presenters. All these, when you go on Star Radio UK, you can also watch and listen to us right from our website. If you'd like to advertise on Star Radio UK, get in touch with us through some of our contact details on our website. And likewise, you can also reach out at +44208 133 2257. If you're calling from UK, it's just 0208 133 2257. For those of you that would also like to send an email, remember it is info@starradiouk.com. Again, info@starradiouk.com. If you like, to also have maybe some time with us on Star Radio UK on Nigeria Voices, you can also let us know, and we will see how we can invite you to come and speak with us. Again, when you go on our website, you can read news on Africa, Asia, some of what I'm reading from our website. Nigeria, hunger crisis looms amid conflict between farmers and herders. It's a lot of news out there. News on Ethiopia state force behind Orema massacre, and likewise, Ghana Peace Council has lost its salt. Ghana, no organized group should call for peace. A lot of all these news when you go on the Star Radio UK. You can also listen to our, some of what we've done in the past. If you want to listen to my previous programs, you can go back there and you'll be able to find all that on Star Radio UK. Also remember that different presenters with different programs running every day, Monday to Sunday on Star Radio UK. All you need to do is make sure you follow us on Twitter, and likewise follow us on Instagram. And remember that also the best way to listen to us is to download our apps. All these on Star Radio UK, www.starradiouk.com. Now, let's go back again into the Twitter, what is trending. According to Simon Ekpa, press release, the office of the Biafra spokesman of the indigenous people of Biafra, 89 days to go, as the Biafra also continue to gear up, for the announcement of their nation. Likewise, a lot of activities as the ESN continue, to protect, from the, ESN continue to protect, their territory from the Fulani terrorists that is doing a lot of havoc. Also, IPOP accuses Tony Blair Foundation of a sponsor blackmail. Let's take a look at that headline. According to the news that we have, the IPOP said its attention has been drawn to what it described as a sponsor blackmail from the organization against it. The indigenous people of Biafra has accused Tony Blair Faith Organization, an interfaith charitable organization that was established by the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, of engaging in what we call a sponsor blackmail against the the movement group. IPOP made this allegation Wednesday today in a press statement. So we will continue to monitor that as well. Let's go back and read more of why IPOP. There is going to be a sit at home. Make sure that you are sitting at home as the instruction has been given. Do not listen to anything otherwise. Again, as we go away from that, let's go into more comment is still coming through Chatham House. Chatham House on Monday was hosting Tinubu where he was speaking, but quite a lot of people are still, discussing, reviewing, what Tinubu said. He was actually passing questions around. He was dodging all the questions about his age, about his health, about security. He was giving security to El-Rufai, a failed governor, that could not protect, the Kaduna, the southern Kaduna, where Christians have been massacred so many times. So let's take a look at, what Tinubu is saying. According to Aye Mujuba, what Tinubu and his cronies did at Chatham House was unprecedented and as summarized by John Cookson, a journalist. A delegated question to shift blame and evade responsibility. I have never seen that before. It wasn't a press conference. It is a Chatham House event, he added. So you can see that Tinubu was running away from all the questions that he was asked. So let's see, let's now go into why more people are discussing Chatham House. The next one says Dr. Okpe Banwo, Adventures of BAT, the Manchurian candidate. Sir, how did you get your wealth? To PM News, I save all my salaries without touching it. To Channels News, I traded stocks like Warren Buffett. To BBC, I inherit plenty land from daddy. To Chatham, Dele Alake will answer. So it seems that Tinubu has given 4 different answers. Nobody knows where he has got his wealth from, and he has given different answers to his wealth. I remember that at some time he was telling us that he was making $850,000 bonus from Deloitte, only for us to know that that is a complete, cock and bull story. Tinubu is now also saying to the BBC that he has actually inherited great real estate from his father. It would be nice to know his father. More comment is coming, again from Bawala. After the Chatham House show of shame, they are absolutely quite quiet about their much advertised U.S. trip to the State Department. What happened? With a question mark. Ha 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 ha. These are some of the headlines as we're looking at what is trending on Twitter. Before 10 minutes from now, I'll be reviewing some of the headlines from Nigeria. This is Star Radio UK. It is your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London, as we continue to monitor all the news headlines coming out of Nigeria. Royalty says Femi Gbajabiamila said at Chatham in reference to Bola Tinubu, you have a thinker and a doer. The same Bola couldn't think and answer questions for himself. It's been a complete total mess. We saw a lot of Yorubas that were also in support of Bola Tinubu, and we saw how they were all campaigning, even though there were also the Yorubas, that were fully on the ground, also discussing those burning issues. Star Radio UK, we are just about half an hour before the end of the program tonight. It is the 7th of Wednesday edition as we continue to review some of the headlines coming out of Twitter. Now let's go back again and look at what is trending more on Twitter before we go into some of the headlines. As a Nigerian that you have been told, and we're going to look at the next trending, which is the Boko Haram. They've created more havoc on the lives of millions of Nigerians, and that is something that a lot of Nigerians needs to look into. And I got this new report coming from Router, the abortion assault. Nigerian military run secret mass abortion program in war against Boko Haram. I don't know what that is all about. It's coming from Reuters. Nightmare in Nigeria, according to this investigation. Maiduguri above is the headquarters of the Nigerian war against Islamic insurgency, and also the home to military and civilian facilities where women have been forced to undergo abortion. Now I understand. Nigerian military run secret mass abortion program. Are we saying that the Nigerian military are sleeping with so many women and doing all kind of abortion? I'm going to look at that straight away. It's quite an interesting one. Since at least 2013, the Nigerian military has conducted a secret, systematic, and illegal abortion program in the country's northeast, ending at least 10,000 pregnancies among women and girls, according to the Router investigation has found. Wow. Many had been kidnapped and raped by the Islamic militant. Resistors were beaten, held at gunpoint, or drugged into compliance, according to the witness. This is an investigation that have just been reported and is coming out today by Reuters. If you have not come across that, I better share the link with some of you that would love to read this. And this indicates part of the mess that we have been talking about, that Nigeria is not a country. Nigeria is a full of different atrocities, nightmare, and if you're still thinking that any political parties will solve these problems, you are living in denial. Once again, a very good evening, as we are now just half an hour away to the end of this edition of the Star Radio UK Niger Voices. The headline that I'm now going to be looking at is the abortion assault by the Nigerian military in the last so many years, as we have it from Router. Is an investigation that took place. I don't know how long they were able to pull this together, but it is now official, and in the next few minutes I'll be giving us the link for those of us. Nigerian military ran what we called a secret mass abortion program. Imagine so many individuals in Nigeria impregnated, and yet abortion was the next thing that the government I told you, this government by the time this government leaves office, there will be a lot of worms to be opened. So that is the link for those of you that would love to is already posted on the Star Radio UK. For those of you on the YouTube, Ismailia, good evening to you. Clement, we must invite the international media to be part and parcel of the Super Rally so as to tell the story to the world. You're quite right. And those of you that would like to read up that story that I'm just about to discuss, right there is the link as well. Good evening, Felix Ben. If you dey fear, die not, the death go later come kill you for your house. Thank you so much. Ama Uche, thank you so much. Bridget Agboma, good evening to you. And likewise, Falano say, if they can package Buhari, do people think they can't package Tinubu again? Those supporting Tinubu should answer. What has changed? Yoruba sovereign nation, Biafra nation must come to stay. And as I'm posting that link, these are the latest headline coming from the Router, that the Nigerian military have run an underground secret, abortion program. It seems that the military were just giving birth to, impregnating individuals, and right now that story is now being brought out, and I'll be looking into that details in just about a few minutes. Once again, we appreciate everyone that have joined us tonight. We say thank you so much as we continue to discuss, around the issues of self-determination, concerns, preparation in our communities, in our local government. We must not give in, at this time, to the enemies that would like us to believe that our right to self-determination should not be granted. We have that right, and we will make use of that right. For those that are saying that we don't have a template, we don't have, what it takes to come out of Nigeria, the question is, what has been the template? What has been the manifesto of these criminal government that have run the last 8 years, and as we have it right now, doing all kind of abortion for children, mothers that have already gone through trauma of the Boko Haram. Imagine you as a mother or a woman, a sister, where you have gone through a lot of atrocity by the Boko Haram, only for the military also to be doing all kind of havoc. So let me quickly give you a bit of this since we already have it here. And all this has been going on since 2013. Imagine under prior before this government, and you would expect that Buhari would have done a little bit changes to that, but rather BBB said delay is dangerous for Yoruba land. Oluwa Damilare, you also say Tifnubu is already a failure. He acquired his word from the variable dubious channels such as the conversion of Lagos state properties to his own. And there's no doubt about that. Good evening to those of you that are also watching us on all the platforms tonight. My name is again Olayomi Koiki, and I'll continue in the next half an hour before I will be handing over back to the studio. If you have joined us, please remember that this program comes every Wednesday when we talk about everything you need to know regarding the atrocities, the crime against humanity, and everything around the self-determination. Self-determination is our right. Do not let anybody bully you to any corner that you do not have that right to self-determination. We actually have the right, and we will make use of that right properly as well. So as we are now coming into the last part of this program, we have picked up on a story coming from Reuters. Since at least 2013, the Nigerian military has conducted a secret, systematic, and illegal abortion program in the country's northeast, ending at least 10,000 pregnancies among women and girls. A Reuters investigation has found many had been kidnapped and raped by the Islamic militant. Resistors were beaten, held at gunpoint, or dragged into compliance, and witnesses Fati wonder if her life was over. Nigerian soldiers surrounded the Lake Chad Island village where Islamic insurgency held her and many other women captive. Shells exploded, bullets whipped by as her captors fled. Fati blacked out in terror. When she awoke in a military camp nearby, I felt the happiest I have ever had in my life, said Fati, now in her early 20s, recalling the attack that occurred several years ago in Nigeria, northeastern Borno State. Over more than a year, she told Reuters she had been forcibly married to insurgents, beaten, and repeatedly raped, resulting in a recent pregnancy. Now, finally, she had been rescued. I was extremely grateful to the soldiers, she said. About a week later, Fati says she lay on a mat in a narrow, dim room at a military barracks in Maiduguri, the state capital. It was rank with cockroaches skittering across the floor. Uniformed men came in and out, giving her and other women mysterious injections and pills. After about 4 hours, said Fati, who was about 4 months pregnant, she felt snaring pain in her stomach and black blood spilled out of her. The other women were bleeding as well and written on the floor. The soldiers want to kill us, she thought. Wow. Fati was 4 months pregnant when liberated from the insurgent. Soon after, she says soldiers medically aborted the pregnancy without telling her, and she was warned if she shared this with anyone, she will be seriously beaten. Fati, in her early 20s, she recalled the injections, then understood the soldiers had aborted their pregnancies without asking or even telling them. After, what was the reason that the soldier was aborting this pregnancy is something that I want you to think of. Once again, good evening to you, King Mirado. Self-determination is our right. Also, self-defense is allowed when the rally actually began. Since at least 2013, the Nigerian army has run a secret, systematic, and illegal abortion program in the country's northeast. They have also terminated at least 10,000 pregnancies among women and girls, many of whom had been kidnapped and raped by the Islamic militant, according to dozens of witness accounts and documentation revealed by Reuters. The abortions mostly were carried out without the person's consent and often without the prior knowledge, according to the witness account. The women and girls ranged from a few weeks to 8 months pregnant, some as young as 12 years old. Interviews and records show. This investigation is based on interview with 33 women and girls who say they underwent abortion while in the custody of the Nigerian army. Just one says she freely gave consent. Reporters also interviewed 5 civilian health workers and 9 security personnel involved in the program, including soldiers and other government employees, such as armed guards engaged in escorting pregnant women to abortion sites. In addition, Reuters reviewed copies of military documents and civilian hospital records describing or tallying thousands of abortion procedures. The existence of the army-run abortion program hasn't been previously reported. The campaign relied on deception, physical force against women who were kept in the military custody for days or weeks. 3 soldiers and a guard said they commonly assure women who often were debilitated from captivity in the bush that the pills and injections given to them were to restore their health and fight disease such as malaria. Rather, they were actually aborting their pregnancy. In some instances, women who resisted were beaten, caned, held at gunpoint, or drugged into compliance. Others were tied or pinned down as abortion drugs were inserted inside them, said a guard and a health worker. Bintu Ibrahim, now in her late 20s, recounted how soldiers gave her 2 injections without her consent after picking her up with a group of other women who fled the insurgents about 3 years ago. You can see the atrocity of Nigeria on Nigerians, and that is why I said, even prior to the President Buhari coming to power, he was given this assurance that Boko Haram was nothing and he is going to deal with them. So this is a story that has to be, I'm going to review that properly later on. But what I can say is women and girls are trapped in a titanic struggle in the northeast Nigeria between the federal government and the Islamic extremist war that has raged for 13 years. At least 300,000 people have died since the conflict began, some due to violence, many more from starvation and disease, according to the United Nations and human rights groups. The Northeast, a region of semi-arid savanna, thick forest, and floodplains, once was known as the breadbasket of the nation, but in the course of the war, it has collapsed into economic devastation, widespread hunger, creating massive displacement, and the United Nations has called one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. So if the United Nations is aware of Nigeria Northeast as the world's worst humanitarian crisis, why then should we remain in that contraction known as Nigeria? Let me give you some of the headline that is coming out of Nigeria before we start, returning back to the studio where Archie will be taking over. But for those of you that have joined us tonight, I say thank you so much as we continue to review, Nigeria, at the verge of either breakup or it will survive it. Time will tell. We are worried over 100 million Nigerians live below poverty line. China, according to the Chinese ambassador, that also donated agricultural value of 2.8 billion, to aid given to Nigeria. Mr. Chu, who handed over the project, said the center will provide opportunities to farmers and government officials, deepen and broaden the two countries' relationship. As the Yorubas are asking for the right to self-determination at the Biafra, have you think about these other countries that probably still want a good cordial relationship with Nigeria? We don't know what their kind of relationship would like to be. With those of us that are asking for our right to self-determination. But one thing is, China is still fully interested to have a Nigeria that is working for them. Likewise, also as other countries as well. But time will tell if only some of this country will be able to also have these issues. The next line of question now is whether one of our king in Nigeria, Oluwa of Iwo, that has also welcomed, groups of people known as the Taliban. The question again now is Nigeria falling into the same path as Afghanistan? And should we be concerned? Should Nigerians be concerned that a king in Yoruba land is actually giving room to those in question around terrorism? That is something that a lot of Yorubas are waking up this morning when images, pictures coming from that particular state. A lot is happening in Nigeria. But one thing I can say is there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of changes as we move into 2023. And again, we're telling the United Nations, the Security Council, to keep a close eyes on Nigeria. We're telling the United States government to keep a close eye on Nigeria. We're telling the European Union to keep a close eye on Nigeria, and likewise all those that are friends to the Nigerian government. Let's take it back to more of the headline, this morning, if you're watching us, or this evening. According to November military briefing, over 80,000 persons associated with Boko Haram have surrendered, according to the government. Staggering amount of numbers there. So let's review more of the headline on the dailies coming out of Nigeria. We are just about 20 minutes away from the end of this program. Fuel scarcity. IPAN accuses NNPC over pricing and disparity issues, and they are now giving 7 days ultimatum. Sanwo-Olu slashes tuition fee across Lagos University by 65%. Is that because Sanwo-Olu wants to be re-elected as the governor, and that is why he's doing that, just to get those in Lagos State to vote for them? Another killing in Lagos State today. One killed, one other has been injured in Kubwa. Okay, that is in Abuja, but I'm aware that there's another killing of a young Nigerian that happened right in Lagos State. I'll be giving you more details of that. Once again, good evening to everyone that are still with us. As you continue with us tonight, let us remember that may Nigeria never happen to any one of us. According to FCT spokeswoman Josephine Ada, said that today, Wednesday, there was an incident that occurred actually yesterday at Relocation Estate off Arab Road in Kubwa. The FCT Command Police has confirmed the case of, armed robbery, shooting, and adoption of persons in Kubwa. You can imagine that they're using the word armed robbery, but everybody knows that whatever happened in FCT Abuja has got to do with the terrorist activities in the country. And NERC wants electricity consumers against buying transformer and others without an agreement with DISCO. The electricity regulatory maintained that installation of electrical asset was the responsibility of the electricity distribution companies DISCO. It is not the responsibility of electricity consumer to provide transformers or other electric asset. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission restated this on Wednesday. I hope that is exactly what it is, because you know that in Nigeria, it is always the other way around. Fuel scarcity in some of the headlines coming out of Nigeria again. Mr. Akinrinade says the hype man was simply asking for fair competition, adding that the competition was no longer fair as a lot of Nigerians have not been able to buy the premium petrol, which is also known as the premium spirit known as petrol, since almost some days and weeks now. Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has accused the Nigerian National Petroleum Company of favoring major oil marketers, issuing a 7-day ultimatum for the oil company to start selling to its members at a regulated depot price of 148 naira 17 kobo. The chairman of Ejigbo Depot, Akin Akinrinade, made the remark in Lagos on Wednesday while addressing the media on the price disparity of petrol to IPAN members by the depot owners. So I'm not sure how much you are buying it, but again, as before I wind down completely, as our super rally for the Yoruba nation is being expected, let us continue to also prepare our mind that it is now or never. Freedom is never given for free. We have to make sure we work hard towards that freedom. And for those of us that want our own independent nation, some might say that it is not possible. Some might argue that it is not our right now to be demanding self-determination. But what I can say is, should we remain focused, should we remain adamant, our quest, our right to self-determination will be coming to us this year as we prepare for the super rally. There's been a lot of rumors that we will never hold that super rally this year, even though this year is just 7 days past this month. So we still have about 20-something days before that announcement. Let us not be deceived by any politicians, that is trying to tell us that Nigeria will be great. Let us ask for that right to self-determination. Again, as we say that the king that continued to promote the Islamic agenda in the Yoruba land won't be the first person. In March this year, President Muhammadu Buhari donated $1 million, to Afghanistan when there were so many Nigerians out of school for more than 8 months. I'm sure you all remember that particular headline. Again, humanity has become a weapon of mass extinction. This is a warning from the United Nations General Secretary. Britain needs Nigeria to be able to survive what is coming their way. Do you also agree with that statement as well? And just as we are there about less than 14 minutes before I hand over, remember that our right to self-determination, like we told you, is something that we must not be bullied around. Professor Banja Akintoye has got the right, template. He has got the right, way to decide what is going to be the next move of this Yoruba nation. So let us try to be calm for those of us that are concerned. I know a lot of us are concerned for so many reasons, but information will come down to us at the appropriate time, and we will make use of that information and drive, our right to self-determination. So if anybody is saying otherwise, let us remember that Baba Akintoye is also asking, saying, it is only our right to self-determination that will free us from the enslavement, the war against terrorism in Nigeria, our identity, and so many other issues as well. So let us remember that. Also, 2 Yoruba teenagers in Iyanopaja were able to sell their organs for 200,000 naira. Yes, you heard me very well. 2 individuals, as we reported this morning, sold their organ for less than 450 pounds. These are so many reasons that we are saying that our unity with Nigeria is no longer working. And these are the 2 teenagers. We can't show you their face, as you can see right there, according to what we have. All these happen in Lagos, not in Ondo State, or not in Ekiti State, Kwara, Kogi, Oyo, or Osun State. These actually happen in Lagos, but these organs have now damaged one of the young girls who we pray will probably recover from this atrocity. Remember that the Osun Osogbo is also an heritage site according to UNESCO, and is also one of the oldest sites in Yoruba land as well. These will only be brought more to the world if we have our own independent nation. A 1999 constitution is not valid to allow a 2023 election, but the politicians are not going to listen to you. They're not going to listen to me. Also, as we remember our brother Ijile Marcos, we continue to pray for him to be released as quickly as possible, as he has not committed any crime or any offense. Let us remember, out of sight, as a lot of us probably must have forgotten that there's somebody called Ijile, even though I know not everybody, but he's also one out of so many media that was fighting day and night with the different time zone in his own different world to talk about the atrocity, the injustice of the Yoruba people, the Nigerians as a whole, the Hausas and all the other tribes as well. There will be no changes. There will be more inflation, and you'll probably not be able to eat this very beautiful, picture on the bread. In reality, none of your governors are ready to do anything to change the situation. President Buhari, as I've reviewed him throughout this program tonight, you can also be the judge yourself. Is Nigeria working for you? And if Nigeria is not working for you, is 2023 going to work for you? Let us remember this young man, Daddy Yatta. Again, question around him should be thrown to El Rufai, that Tinubu was actually throwing question to. El Rufai has a hand in the disappearance of Daddy Yatta, a family man. But today, in Nigeria of your dream, not our own dream, Daddy Yatta is nowhere to be found. We pray for Daddy Yatta. Let us remember our sister that was killed by the Nigerian security, Jumoke Oyeleke, last year, July 3rd, in Lagos. Let us remember those that are putting on the Biafra outfit and have become a problem to the Nigerian government, where disappearance of Biafras are continue to occur in the southeast of what is known as Nigeria today. Even though after 1 year kept away from the public eye, she was able to appear in the court as we demand, justice for Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people. He has not committed any crime, and he has been acquitted and discharged. There's no reason for holding him right there, and we're again asking the international community that the danger that Nnamdi Kanu that is not going to be released will be more problem ahead before 2023. As a lot of Nigerians that are still saying that Nigeria is going to work, I am asking you, are you sure that the Nigeria of your dream will happen in your lifetime? Let us remember those that have been killed. Tolulope Arotile was killed till date. Nobody has given a good reason why she was killed. All we were told is some of our friends reversed into her and she died. Remember Rebecca, she was stoned to death because of her religious views. Even though we were told, or we are still told, that we are one Nigeria. But in Sokoto or in the northern part of Nigeria today, you better be careful with some of your statements in your WhatsApp group so that you don't become a victim, just as Dr. Aborode was a victim in the Yoruba land by the Fulani terrorists. a man that have lived all his life in Germany, invested everything into having a PhD. He was slaughtered, chopped to pieces. We cannot show you some of those images. All these happened in the southwest of Nigeria. 2 years ago, the NSAS led to the death of many Nigerians. But today, the same Nigerians are campaigning for the same political party. I'm not sure whether they understand that Nigeria is not for them. But as we continue to pray for the family of Mr. Oluwagbenga Owolabi and Rachel Okpadele, these two were killed by the same terrorists that the government failed to protect. He is not a madman. He was actually kidnapped. He has been released now after 4 months. This is what it looks like. This is Nigeria. Baba Awolowo have told us that when the right time comes, we will fight for who we are as Yoruba people. The time is now, and we must defend our right to self-determination. Evidence have shown that this beautiful sculpture, now in the hands of the Metropolitan Police, is something that has been in existence for 700 years. So that means that we, the Yorubas, have every right to continue to claim our identity away from Nigeria. These are only 20 left. We also were told that at some point they were brought here in UK for exhibition during the era of some of our leaders during that time. As we continue to appreciate all our fathers that are working around the clock, Professor Banji Akintoye, Chief Sunday Adeyemo Igboho, Professor Wale Adeniran, let us also remember that after 8 months to 9 months, Dr. Chinelo would have been alive today. Her life was cut short by the Boko Haram terrorists, where she was also one of the 168 people that were affected, killed during the train between Abuja to Kaduna on March 28. The train has actually resumed back yesterday, but we are not too sure how soon security around it will be there. Let us remember in the 80s, Babangida actually sent a letter bomb to Delegiwa because he was actually looking into some of the drug atrocity of this particular individual that is now residing somewhere in Minna, where every politician have to go there and bow. But the family of Delegiwa are still asking what actually went wrong in that letter bomb. He actually told you in Kaduna train attack that there will be life lost, and yes, there was quite a number of life lost. As I'm just going to be handing over, we remember Kokoro. Up to today, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde have not answered the question, where is the head of this young man, a family man that has children and wife and mother? He was killed in Ibadan by those working for the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde. Up to today, he was buried without a head inside the body. Let us remember all these beautiful images of Chief Sunday Igboho in Ekiti State. The next one will be much bigger than these. These are the Yorubas that are asking for their right to a better life. Self-determination is not a crime. As we remind everyone that the 1914 amalgamation has expired and our right to self-determination must now be respected. As I will be handing over to my producer, Mr. Archie Armand, I say thank you so much to everyone that have joined us this evening. My name is Olayomi Koiki. And on that note, I say have a very good evening, and I will say next week we will be back again for the next edition of the Star Radio UK program on Niger Voices. But at 11 o'clock tomorrow, I will be coming back on again on the Star Radio UK Morning Show to discuss all the news headline on Nigeria. And on that note, I say bye for now. Udabo.